Daniel, Danny, as he was known to his family and to Rotary, passed away on a Thursday, October 27th. He was a dear friend to myself and to many others. He will be missed. He was just 75 years young. He is survived by his wife Janice, 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 2 brothers. I'm going to begin today by telling you just a little bit about Danny. I'll invite others up later to provide you with some more context, but for now I'll just attempt to take a broad brush and try to set the stage. Danny was born and raised in Springfield, Illinois, the home to Abraham Lincoln, and really smack dab in the middle of central Illinois farm country. If you've not been to that area of the country, it's an ocean of corn and soybeans. I like to think that growing up there in the middle of America helped to form Danny's common sensibilities and his gentlemanly demeanor. That demeanor that everyone knew so well. As a young man, Danny served in the Navy, and the Navy took Danny on adventures all around the world. He also served multiple tours in Vietnam. While in the Navy, he met his wife Janice, and they later married in 1971. After leaving the Navy, Danny completed his degree in history, and the study of history would remain a passion for Danny throughout his life. After college, he embarked on a career in the academic world, starting in the financial aid office at the university he graduated from, working with veterans. Kingman and Mojave County would come to know Danny in 1978 when he accepted a position at Mojave Community College as Director of Financial Aid for Veteran Services. Kingman would become his adopted hometown. Danny went on to spend a total of 30 years at Mojave Community College, serving in multiple leadership roles, all the while becoming very involved in community service along the way. In 2008, Danny retired from MCC, but he did not retire from service. Because while Danny certainly had a successful professional career, he was more than a leader in the academic community. He was a humanitarian in the wider community. Throughout his life, he was deeply involved in many civic endeavors, consistently volunteering and serving as a community leader and humanitarian. A few years before his retirement, Danny was introduced to Rotary International, where his legacy and service was really taken to the next level. I doubt that at the time, Danny knew how he would be so profoundly impacted by Rotary, and more importantly, how he would affect the lives of others along his Rotary path. More about that later. Danny loved his family. He loved spending time in the great outdoors with his truck and his dog. He loved Rotary, he loved history, and he loved his fellow man. His family will miss him, of course. We will miss him. The world will miss him. And the world is going to be a better place because he was here. And I think that's the best you can say about any man.
Left face. Post. At this time, for those who are able, please rise and remain standing. Please be seated. Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
Can you hear me? My dad was a great man. Always there when I needed him. Always sharing his knowledge with enthusiasm. He's the reason I enjoy the outdoors, not because he always told me to go outside and play. Yeah, I went on a few jeeping trips with him, but not as many as I would have liked. My favorite trip was hiking the Grand Canyon. Went from the North Rim all the way down to the bottom at Phantom Ranch, all the way up the other side to the South Rim. It was hard, the long hours of walking, the sore muscles wanted to say, stop, go home. But at the end, it was totally worth it. And I always wanted to repeat it with my dad, but never got the chance because, you know, life has a way of getting in the way of being too busy doing things and time getting away from you. But it was his second trip when we went, so he probably didn't want to go on a third because that double switchback, I was the youngest one there and it kicked my butt. It's just like, it was horrible. I love you, Dad. And it's just, he would be surprised at how many of you showed up today and so deeply honored that you chose to celebrate his incredible life. I would like to thank Rotary for putting this on for us. And I would like to thank all of you for showing up. I love you, Dad.
Hey everybody. I don't know how I'm gonna get through this, but I'm gonna try. I spent the last month trying to prepare what to say for my dad, but I don't think anything enough could be said. My whole life, he's taught history and put kids through school and made our county and our city a better place, and it's just such a high measure. I don't know how you live up to that. Him leaving us in the way he did was hard. One of my favorite sayings is life comes at you in waves, and this has been a pretty big wave for our family. We're as well liked as many people that have been in my dad's life. We're really small knit little family. We've been mourning by ourselves in that way. But I thank each and every one of you for showing up, sharing, listening. I know there's so many that couldn't be here to do the same. His brothers were super important to him. My great-grandma June, her mom, used to refer to the three as the Three Musketeers. And they're both older, his brothers are both older. And they were pretty shocked at their baby brothers going before them. They asked me to share some words, so if you guys will give me a moment. From the middle brother Robert, Uncle Bob. He would like to say, Danny's being gone is still unbelievable and incomprehensible. I find solace in knowing that he touched all our lives, and I find happiness knowing that he will live on in our memories. He lived a good life that we will forever cherish and remember. He was a loving son, a supportive brother, a loyal husband, a good father, a dedicated patriot, and an amazing friend. He left with us a part of him that time can never take away. Uncle Bob. Frank is the oldest, and he really wanted to be here. This has been super hard. I think my dad was his hero. And this is what he wanted to say if he could have been here. When I received the call about Danny's death, after the immense shock, the first thing to occupy my thoughts were about his kindness and caring ways and how much I'm going to miss him. It brought to mind the lyrics of the song entitled Something You Can't Get Through by Willie Nelson. So I'm going to read a few of those lyrics if you guys okay. Something you get through. When you lose the one you love, you think your world has ended. You think your world would be a waste of life without them in it. You feel there's no way to go on. Life is just a sad, sad song, but love is bigger than us all. The end is not the end at all. Life goes on, and when it's gone, it lives in someone new. It's not something you get over, but it's something you get through. Those lines reminded me of the impact Danny had in his life as a husband and father, and as an educator, and as an advisor and encourager to countless veterans and students who could have lost their way without him. The loss of Danny in our lives on earth is sad, but our love for him is bigger than death, and his life goes on and lives in someone new. Danny's worthy life lives on within all who knew him. And I think, Uncle Frank, and I think personally for me, it's the only way I'm getting through the days is when I look in the mirror and I see my dad, I see his hands, and I know no matter what, he lives in with me. And I would love to hear any stories, shake anybody's hands, hug anybody, and share my dad through me, if it's possible. And thank you all, Ren, Doggy, Justin, Josh, thank you all for coming. I think I went on a little too long, but life comes at you in waves. I love you.
To begin, and to speak a bit about Danny's impact on Mojave Community College in particular, I'd like to introduce President of Mojave Community College, Dr. Stacy Libenstein.
Good afternoon and welcome to Mojave Community College. I'm Stacy Klippenstein, the proud president of Mojave Community College, and even more proud to have known Dan. First, my condolences to the family and to all the friends of Dan Messersmith. I had the great opportunity to first meet Dan at a Rotary meeting in August of 2019, shortly after I arrived in Kingman. Both Dan and Bill McClure wrestled me to the ground and demanded that I join the Rotary. And that's true, by the way. While visiting with Dan multiple times over the last 3 years, I realized I was talking to a person deeply passionate about Mojave Community College. He loved to tell me stories, provide some history, and always talked about serving students. Here is a little bit about Dan's history with MCC. Dan served Mojave Community College from 1978 to 2007 in multiple roles, including Director of Financial Aid, Director of Institutional Research, Regional Administrator for the Arizona Strip programs, Campus Dean, Dean of Students, and an Assistant to the President for Advancement. During his tenure at MCC, Dan was active in the Elder Hostel program and regularly served as an adjunct professor. Dan was honored in 2005 as an MCC founder, an award the Mojave Community College Board of Governors and the President can bestow on an outstanding person who greatly contributed to the growth and development of the college. In his free time, Dan was an incredible history buff who wrote MCC's 20th anniversary book in 1991, as well as contributed photos and materials to the MCC's recent 50th anniversary book. He also wrote a book of Mojave County history, which I believe you can still buy on Amazon, which is awesome. Please buy it. And volunteered at the Mojave County Museum of History and Arts, and was extremely involved in the Rotary organization. Because of all this, Dan was recently recognized by the Kingman Chamber of Commerce for a Lifetime Achievements Award with the Andy Award. Dan Messersmith was a vital foundation to the Mojave Community College, providing the hard work and vision that made it possible for MCC to be the institution of higher education it is today. He was dedicated and enthusiastic leader and an all-around great guy. Dan will be missed by this institution and this community. I want to say thank you to the Messersmith family for allowing Dan to be part of our family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Klippenstein, for those kind words, and also for hosting this celebration for Danny at the college. Very fitting place to do this. I'd like now to introduce a couple of speakers to talk about Danny's deep connection with history. Is Shannon here? Okay. So I'd like to introduce Bill Ekstrom, who is on the board of directors of the Mojave Museum of History and Arts, who will talk a little bit about Danny's involvement with the museum and history.
If I can do this. Obstacle course. Yeah. As Charlie said, my name is Bill Ekstrom. I've been involved in the community for a number of years, a lot of times with Dan, through Rotary and to the Mojave Museum of History and Arts. Dan didn't know any strangers. Once you met him, he was your friend. And my meeting with Dan is kind of memorable. I was county attorney, and as such, I represented the college. And they had a lot of contracts and such documents that needed to be signed by an attorney. And traditionally, we'd go to the Attorney General's office down in Phoenix. And it'd send it off to the Attorney General, and maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks later, it'd come back with a signature on it. And that would be done. Well, that didn't satisfy Dan, because he needed to get things done now. So he called and said, well, I've got a little contract I want to bring by, and would you take a look at it? I said, sure. So he came by my office, and I had this 20-page contract, and handed it to me, and I said, well, thank you. When do you need it? He said, well, I'll wait. And he did. And that's the way he was. He was one of those people who get her done, and didn't have time to wait for things to fall into place all the time. In that regard, he was a leader in lots of organizations, especially my experience with the museum. And I've been on that board for maybe 20 years, I don't know, for a long time. And Dan's always been part of the institution. His book, incredible, History of Mojave County to, 1912? So you mean they had history before 1912? Well, evidently. It's a wonderful book. If you haven't read it, you can get it at the museum. And it's a great read. It talks about our history, about the Indian tribes, about the geology of the area, all those kinds of neat things that Dan was so passionate about. He lived it. He's one of these guys that didn't just talk about climbing the mountain. He climbed the mountain. Fishing in the stream, he fished the stream. He did it all. He lived it all. A great, great influence on our community. And as I said, he didn't know any strangers. And he was my friend. Thank you all.
Profound connection with history of all kinds, starting with his degree in history and then throughout his whole life studying history. It was one of his great passions. I'd like to now just take some time to provide some perspective about Danny's service as a Rotarian, starting with some personal thoughts. Service above self. That's Rotary's long-standing motto. And Danny Messersmith exemplified it. Danny was invited to join Rotary in 2003 by charter member of the Kingman Route 66 Rotary Club, Stu Anderson. And in Rotary, he continued his passion for volunteer service. As a Rotarian, he served in many, many capacities at the club level and at the district level and beyond, including as an officer of Rotary International in 2016 when he became district governor of our district. He was, of course, president of the Kingman Route 66 Rotary Club, and he served Arizona as a Rotarian with great distinction. He served in so many and too many Rotary leadership positions for me to mention today, but suffices to say that he served in every capacity just about that you can as a Rotarian. And oh, by the way, along the way, he took time to write the history of Rotary in Arizona. Of course he did. On a personal note, Danny served as my district secretary when I was district governor. That's really when I had the privilege to work side by side with our friend Danny. And when we had time to take a walk through our Rotary journey together. He put all that he had into everything that he did. And he was an inspiration to me and an important advisor. At club meetings, he was always there with a warm handshake and a smile. He walked around the room, made sure that he said hello to everybody. You could just see in him that he loved being around Rotarians. He was happy every time he could be around Rotarians. Now, Danny was fond of telling people that I was to blame for his vast involvement in Rotary, because I continually urged him to get more involved and take on more responsibilities. In fact, it took me several years to get him to volunteer for the Vocational Fund of Arizona, which he finally did, relent, and then of course went on to set the standard for service in that organization. But the truth is I had really little to do with it. Danny had his own strong need to serve others, and Rotary was just one avenue that he had at his disposal, one opportunity he had to serve through Rotary. He was really self-driven, and his Arizona legacy in Rotary will be that of an important leader, a mentor, a friend, and a humanitarian. I'd like to introduce Dr. Tanya Watson, who's past district governor, who served with Danny, to say a few personal words about Danny.
Thank you all for being here today. I'm going to speak personally. So I might have to read this because I'm going to be, even though I've gone through this a few times and like every time I tear up, so pardon me. As many of you know, Danny Messersmith, Cheryl Christensen, and I were Rotary District Governors, DGs, during 2016-17. Danny was the last DG for District 5490, and I was the last DG for District 5510 before we merged into this ultra powerful, mighty District 5495, right, Larry? But Danny and I both cherished our roles as cabooses for our districts. From the get-go, Danny referred to the three of us as family. In fact, he always called us as his sisters, and he steadfastly said that he was our brother. He frequently wanted the song "We Are Family" by Sister Sledge. You all know it. played during our appearances. So Danny stepped into that family role the very first time we met in person. Our DG nominee education, the first of 3 very intense years of training, was held in Victoria, British Columbia. The initial night there, a few of our classmates went to a local establishment for a nightcap. One drink turned into many. A band appeared, think Danny, and we ended up dancing. The place closed. Now, as you know, Danny loved to dance, and he was a good dancer. So do I, but he was much more structured than I, and frankly better. He was a better dancer than me, for sure. So we both danced a lot that evening and other evenings, but we didn't dance together much. Just different genres, different modalities. Now, as my loving partner, Steve, you'll meet a little bit, is aware, I am an equal opportunity dancer. I will dance with anyone who stands out there and stays with me. And so that evening, one of my adopted dance buddies, a pleasant young lady of Canadian bred, seemed to like me much more than I reciprocated. Between songs, I would go back to the table with my Rotary buddies, and they noticed that my new fan was getting bolder and bolder as the evening went on. I acknowledged as much and said I was going to the ladies' room and would come back shortly. Little did I know that Danny, my brand new protective brother, went to the ladies' room too, on the outside, when he saw the woman follow me in. After a few minutes, I heard in his booming bass voice, "Tanya, are you okay in there? I'm waiting out here for you." And I must admit that that was very welcome. It was an increasingly awkward situation inside there, and it was nice to hear him to go out. After that, he insisted on escorting me all the way to the outside of my hotel room to make sure that I was safe. 'Cause, in his words, that's what family does. After every one of our myriad Rotary meetings and events, Steve and I could always expect a text from Danny, pretty much even before things started. "Where are you two? When can we meet up?" His messages on our gatherings were the kickoff and sometimes the break time of every time, of every meeting, of every gathering. In the last 6 years, my bro Danny and I spent many Rotary hours together, learning, grousing, celebrating, commiserating, and yes, imbibing. If I had been born into a biological family with a big brother, Danny's just the kind of big brother I would want. My bro Danny, I'm so honored and grateful that our paths crossed. You will be missed. Thank you.
I'd like now to introduce Jeannie Morgan, who's also a past assistant governor of Rotary International, to talk a little bit more about Danny's involvement in Rotary Vocational Fund of Arizona.
Yeah, I knew Dan before I ever was involved in the vocational fund, and before he was involved as extensively as he became in Rotary. I lived in Lake Havasu when I first met him, and as a banker, we were encouraged to be involved in the community. And so as a representative of one of the community organizations over there, I was participating with a group that was gathered together of nonprofits that were trying to figure out how we all could do better, because it had become kind of a habit of criticizing donors for not giving to your own organization when you knew they'd given to somebody else's. So Dan was really instrumental in educating us about how we would all do better if we learned to congratulate anybody for supporting the community, no matter which organization they gave to, but encourage them to add us to their donor list for the future. And we all did better. And he had more experience with fundraising because of his association with the colleges. And he was a good teacher about the art of fundraising back then. So I was really glad when I had an opportunity in 2018 to join TRBFA, because Dan was well established there. And I understand that he became a part of that because of Charlie's urging, but I think that Dan would have been there with or without Charlie's urging, because it was right up his alley. During the early years of his tenure with TRBFA, I understand that there was a barber college in Tucson that nearly broke the bank and was draining the funds, and so he came up with the idea of having some preferred programs for priority funding, that we would only fund those programs so that we could fund students that were pursuing other avenues besides barbering. So he came up with a way to do it that was tasteful without saying we're not gonna do this, we're gonna be fair about what we will and won't do, and consistent. And the other thing that he implemented was putting in a practice of online applications and a consistent practice of how the applications had to be documented before they went out to the clubs for interviews and everything. So he made it more fair to all concerned all around. He improved it and he expanded it. He expanded it to the point that at the first board meeting that I attended in 2018, we had to vote to lower the maximum grant that was available from $3,000 to $2,000. And it's continued to grow, but we've never been able to restore that maximum grant. Another thing that was decided that first meeting was that we would have a halt in accepting new applications until after a specific date when we were back in the fundraising season again. And fortunately, things have grown enough in the last few years that we haven't had to have those halts. But we had one every year for the first 2 or 3 years I was on the board, and it was sad to have to tell applicants no, because we just don't have money available right now. So giving to TRBFA is something that was important to Dan, and it will continue to do in the future what he was doing in his lifetime. And I know that a lot of times people will give a one-time gift to a charity of choice, and that's a great way to honor someone. But I hope a lot of you will make a decision to do. Dan did a repeated process every month of going online and making a donation. Now, we have the ability on our website to have that monthly donation be automatic, but Dan did it himself. It was an intentional thing he did every month. And I would like to see some people here that really loved Dan and celebrated him carry on his legacy of helping students, and they have to meet low-income guidelines to even qualify for our grants. They have to be at or below 150% of the poverty level. And if you could celebrate his life by continuing his giving, and have it be an intentional thing, and think of Danny in a celebratory way every time you do. It would help this legacy that he helped us build be something that would last a long, long time. And I know that he would be celebrating in heaven, probably dancing. But he would be so thrilled to know that people were remembering him in a tangible way. But in his lifetime of service with TRVFA, he helped close to 1,000 students get over 1.5 million in vocational education grants. And most of those students he never met face to face. And the art of being a truly giving person is helping someone you will never meet have a better life. And he did that so many times, over and over again. And I thank all of you who supported him in being a part of what he did with his service, because I know that your family sacrificed him with him with the time he gave to us. And I thank you for the time that you allowed him to give. It's huge. And I thank all of your friends, everyone that loved Danny like we all did, and just help us celebrate his life by continuing his legacy now and on and on.
Now, past District Governor Brett McKeon couldn't be here today, but he did send some words that he wanted read. And those of you that know Brett know that he's a writer by vocation, so he left me with some pretty big words to read. But in the words of Brett McKeon, Danny was a unique and very special person. I first met Danny when I was my Rotary Club's president, and he was our district governor. He was kind and always generous with his time. He led by example, and for many of us, when we think of what it means to be a Rotarian, we think of Danny. Our district has lost one of its most unrelenting and indomitable advocates of Rotary and all the good that Rotarians can accomplish. A person's legacy is determined not by how long they live or how much money they earn, but by the lives they were able to impact. Danny dedicated his life to serving others and changing the world for the better. His contributions and the lives he touched guarantee Danny's memory will live forever. In 1972, when the great Jackie Robinson passed away, words were spoken at his funeral that have always stuck with me. Although they were meant for the man who broke the Major League Baseball color barrier, they resonate with me today as I think of Danny and all that he accomplished in his life. A speaker alluded to the dash that appears on a grave marker, separating the year of birth from the year of death. On that dash, said the speaker, is where we live. And for everyone, there is a dash of possibility, to choose the high road or the low road, to make things better or to make things worse. Progress does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. In order for an ideal to become a reality, there must be a personality to translate it. Thank you, Danny, for all you did to make our world a better place. Respectfully, Brett McKeon. Next, I'd like to bring up Larry Horton, who is our current district governor in Rotary District 5495. Our district spans all of northern Arizona. Larry has a few words to share about Danny as well.
It's truly an honor to be here, and I'm very privileged to be able to address you. My name is Larry Horton. I'm the district governor representing the District 5495, of which Danny was a huge part of. He felt a strong sense of value in the impactful work of Rotary Foundation and supported their global grant significantly. He donated to the Rotary Foundation, and as a result was a Paul Harris Fellow ×9. He was also a member of the Paul Harris Society, a sustaining member, and a major donor. Rotary International has over 1.4 million members. Each year, the highest honor Rotary International can bestow upon a member is the Service Above Self Award. In 1989, Rotary adopted the motto, Service Above Self, and awards only 150 people each year with the Service Above Self Award. Only one Rotarian can receive the award per district. After the nomination was submitted, Danny Messersmith was one of less than 1/2 of 1% of Rotarians worldwide to receive this prestigious award in May of this year in Prescott, Arizona, District 5495. The mission statement of Rotary talks about creating lasting change on a global and local levels. It would be difficult to quantify the reach and impact of the powerful good Danny did through this organization. But one thing is for sure, Danny's legacy is and will continue to positively affect people in the community who need support for years to come. Thank you very much.
Now, I'd like to switch gears a little bit and introduce Becky Fawcett, who is the CEO of the Kingman Chamber of Commerce, and also my niece.
You're gonna admit that? I didn't have to duck, hardly. I am a lot shorter than you. So I did write a few words, but I came up with a few things while I was sitting here that I would like to say. First of all, condolences to you guys. What an honor to be part of his legacy and follow in his path, because he was an awesome guy. I got to meet Liv a little bit when I worked with the Interactors, and I know he was quite proud of you and all your grandpa's worked. So anyway, I wanted to keep this very, very short. I'm here because of him winning the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Andy Award, is bestowed upon somebody who lives their life to make Kingman a better place. And obviously, from all of the stories that you've already heard, that's what Danny did. It's just what he did every day. And I'm not even going to try to read it. I'm not good at that. It's not my style. I just talk. Anyway, the night of the Andes, Danny came in and he came up and of course gave me a great big hug, as he always did. And he said, I don't know why I got nominated for this thing. They need to give this to somebody else. And I said, oh, Danny, stop it. You're always doing great things and you really need to be proud of the accomplishments and stuff that you did. And of course, it was no competition that he won that night. So anyway, I want to just go on and say his other love obviously was dancing, as we've talked about. We've been at so many different Rotary things together, and he would just dance with anybody that would take his hand. He would drag you out on the dance floor and keep you there all night long. So I just wanted to, in closing, say that I know that he's dancing with the stars right now. And I just hope he doesn't wear out all the angels up there, because some of us still need them here on earth, and I know that he'll just dance and dance and dance. So I just want to say dance on, my friend, and thank you all.
Thank you, Becky. I'd like to thank Danny's family for giving us the privilege, really, of having this celebration of his life. We really so much appreciate it, the opportunity to honor him in this way. I'd like to conclude this program with Steve Cervantes and Tanya Watson, and would like to share a very special song about Danny.
Just before we sing this song, Percy, Dan was really the first person, after I met this young lady in Rotary, he went out of his way and made an effort to make me feel welcome. And listening to everybody today, while I still feel special, I see he made everybody feel that way, and I think that's wonderful. I was honored and privileged at his district conference, Mary Kay, I don't know if you remember this. He had asked me to do a favorite song of his by Bobby Darin called The Curtain Falls. And that song would be so appropriate to do today. I'm sorry, Danny, we're not going to do that one. Instead, Tanya and I, on a long drive back from Salt Lake City, just kind of put our thoughts and hopefully some of yours into some lyrics. Coincidentally, or not, this was a song by Kenny Loggins called Danny's Song. And hope this makes your part. We could smile and tell ourselves we're the lucky ones. Danny bought the farm, warmer than the western sun. He was a man who liked to plan to help Rotary. We all could see how he loved his history. Even though we ain't got Danny, that man was loved by so many. Memories will bring a chain of love. Now he's gone from our lives, brings a sting of tears to our eyes, but he'd say everything is gonna be alright. Even though not long ago Dan was with us still, used warmth and skill to help us build goodwill. Now we smile remembering our dear departed friend. We're sad we can't pretend time on earth is an end. Even though we ain't got Daddy, that man was loved by so many. Memories will bring a train of love. Now he's gone from our lives, brings a sting of tears to our eyes, but he'd say
Thank you, Steve. I know Danny would have really, really appreciated and loved it. Don't forget to share your thoughts on the cards that we have in the back. Those cards will be shared with the family. Any thoughts or stories you have about Danny, or feel free to share your stories with Danny's family while they're here. I know they would love to hear them. We welcome you to stay for a while. We have some refreshments in the back, and just talk and share your memories about Danny with each other. So thank you all for coming today, and we appreciate everybody being here. Danny was a great man.